to another awesome episode of the
Rockin House.
Today's special guest, all the way from Rochester, New York, we have Rob Mount. Rob Mount is a former drummer for Lou Gramm, the legendary voice of Foreigner with all the mega hits. Rock dude.
Yeah, we're starting to connect the dots here on a lot of levels. Rob Mount is friends with a previous guest we had, which was Bob D, and his band's called Bob D with Petro. So connecting the dots on a lot of levels, and then Rob Mount is of the highest order, a college-educated musician who drums to the hill, and he was in the band when Lou Gramm made his definite comeback, and you know, people were saying after the surgery he wasn't going to make it back full recovery, and he wasn't the same Lou Gramm. But I'll tell you what, because I can tell you, because Paul Rogers was the first one to jump in and say, "You're back, Lou Gramm," and that was the 214 era when Rob Mount was in the band, and fantastic. So for us to have someone connected with Lou Gramm's amazing. I grew up listening to all them Foreigner hits, and I'm sure Marky Z did too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so to be able to have a musician who worked with the legend Lou Gramm is fantastic for the Rockin House. So we're going to have Rob Mount from New York on the show today.
Absolutely. Let's bring on and welcome Rob Mount to the Rockin House. Welcome, Rob. All right, this is Marky Z, and I'm here with Rock Dude with another awesome episode of the Rockin House, and I have today's special guest with me, Rob Mount. He's playing with the legendary singer of Foreigner, Lou Gramm, former drummer of the band, and of course there's other bands he's played in that are pretty awesome as well. Rob, welcome to the Rockin House. We're glad to have you here, brother.
Hey, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. You know, it could be a pleasure talking to you guys. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, Rob. We're really happy to have you, and what I want to talk about right now is we're going to go to the very beginning of how things all started for you, Rob, as a musician. You know, we all have stories. It's amazing, different stories that I hear from everybody. Let's start with, you know, what brought you to become a musician, like how we all become, and why?
Well, like most of us, you know, it just starts at a young age. I was, you know, beating on pots and pans, you know, driving my mother crazy, you know, and listening to music that she had around the house. She was listening to the Osmonds a lot, and that was kind of my first introduction to listening to music. And, you know, Jay Osmond was like one of my early drum heroes and stuff like that. And, you know, then I progressed to actual drum lessons once they realized I had maybe a little talent or something. And so I was almost 6, 7 years old. I started doing snare drum lessons with a crazy German guy here in a music school who had a wild accent, and he would say, you know, like, you know, first we play the snare drum, and, you know, next we go on from there. And they kind of freaked me out. I lasted one lesson. I was like, I'm not into this dude, you know. So, but then I started, you know, getting into, I saw Kiss on Paul Lynde's Halloween special in '76, and that was really what corrupted me. I graduated from the Osmonds to Kiss.
Well, they corrupted us all, dude. I'm one of them.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I started listening to Kiss and Zeppelin and Rush, and you know, I started taking more lessons on, you know, drum set and stuff, but not too much on drum set as I got into the school bands and started doing formal training, doing orchestras and percussion ensembles, and you know, progressed from there. Yeah. So on drum set, I kind of became self-taught through listening to records and playing along, and you know, but formally trained all the way through college. You know, I went through high school, played in the band. I went to the Eastman School of Music here in Rochester when I was in high school, and did percussion ensembles and music theory and all that. And I went to college and studied music education. But I realized I didn't have the patience for children and didn't want to be a music teacher. Right. You know, I wanted to rock. I realized that wasn't for me. And so, but always played in bands when I was a kid, you know, and, you know, the basic stuff we all do, you know. That's the short version.
Well, let's ask you this, since we're talking about that. I mean, there's always influences that you have. You say Kiss. We all talked about how Kiss has influenced a lot of us artists. Really, they have. I'm one of them, no doubt about it. When I saw them, I knew what I needed to do at 6. But here's the thing. What are some of your drum influences? Like who are some of your favorite drummers that really influenced you to become the drummer you are today?
Okay. Well, other than Jay Osmond, once I got corrupted by rock, it was, you know, Peter Criss, because, again, Kiss was the first big rock band. So, you know, I thought Peter Criss was God for many years until my teachers kind of educated me that there was guys better than him. Although there's nothing wrong with Peter. He had his own thing. And I actually did learn a lot from Peter Criss. You know, there's certain things that he did very well. Like, you know, keeping your left foot on the hi-hat, chicken up and down all the time when he played, because he was a jazz drummer. And to this day, you know, you see a lot of guys that drum keep their 2 feet planted on the double pedal, and they never put a foot on their hi-hat, and they don't chick along with the hi-hat and keep it in time and stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that don't either know how to do it or don't want to do it. And I learned that from Peter Criss when I was like 10, you know. So that's the biggest thing I got out of him. And then I graduated to Led Zeppelin. So, of course, you know, like everybody else, John Bonham was a huge influence and still is, of course. You know, his favorite, his drum sound today is probably the most emulated drum sound and still my favorite. You know, just a wide open, big drum sound that isn't processed with a pile of shit that, to this day, you know, most drum sounds don't like drums. You know, it's like they're all processed or sampled, and you know, or they're trying to sound like him, but most guys don't come close.
You're right.
And you know, there's nothing beats setting up a couple of microphones in a big room and just getting the drums. You know what I mean? And that was his secret. So Bonzo, and then from there, Rush. You know, was the next big thing, and of course Neil Peart, to be perfectly correct. God rest his soul. Huge influence. You know, he was technically more technical than Bonzo, and you know, I don't have to say, you know, much about him. I mean, he's probably the most air drummed drummer in existence. You know, I mean,
you're right.
You know, you go to a Rush concert and everybody's moving their arms in unison to all his you know, drum fills and Spirit Radio and you know, Tom Sawyer and all that shit. You know.
Yeah, dude, I was hooked on Rush from the very start. When I heard them guys, that was it. I was like, these guys are phenomenal. 3-piece amazing rock band from Canada. No doubt about it. One awesome Canadian rock band they were. Awesome. Yeah. So some major fluence drummers, and I gotta admit, I like all those drummers you're saying. No question about it.
I gotta throw in Tommy Aldridge too, because he's probably the biggest. You know, so I could go on forever. I'll keep it short, but Tommy Aldridge probably is. I can't say he's my favorite because it's tough. You don't want to judge one over the other, but he's probably, if you listen to my playing out of anybody that are my favorites, he's probably the biggest that you'd be able to hear. I mean, there's guys like Stuart Copeland are a huge influence, but you never hear that. You'd never hear him in my playing, you know. But Tommy Aldridge, I gotta give you one more and just say Tommy. So
awesome, man. Awesome. So, Rob, we talk a little bit about that. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to come back in just about a minute and talk about some other things and how Rob got into the band.
My whole life passing, my feet were stuck to the ground, yeah.
back with Rob Mount. Once again, awesome. Welcome back, brother. We talked about how you became a drummer, you know, how you became a musician, your influences, your favorite drummers, some awesome guys you mentioned like Neil Peart, and Peter Criss, and Stuart Copeland, and Tommy Aldridge, all these great drummers. Let's talk about some of the bands you've played in. I mean, the bands that I've heard are phenomenal. I mean, some killer heavy metal, hard-hitting playing. Let's talk about that, and then, of course, go into how you got your deal with Lou Gramm and getting in with that legendary singer of Foreigner and playing with his project.
Cool. Well, I mean, of any note, other than the usual garage bands and things like that, we've all done for 30 years. Probably the first thing that had anything to do with some name players was this band called Ramrod, which is a real heavy band, which I sent you, a few of those tracks, or one of those tracks.
Yep.
The guys in that band were the guitar player Sebastian Marino, who was in a band called Anvil for a few years in the early 90s, so everybody's heard of Anvil.
Yeah.
The singer in that band, Ramrod, was a guy named Joe Camo, who was in a band called Liege Lord, which is on Metal Blade Records, and they had some minor success over in Europe. And so the three of us are from Rochester, New York, and they called me one day. They'd seen me play in prior bands, which were more commercial. The band before Ramrod was more like a Bon Jovi kind of hair band that I was in, but they wanted me to do a metal project. And I said, sure. I'd never really played heavy stuff like that before, but I was up for it. So, a lot of double bass, a lot of, heavy stuff in the Overkill, Anvil, Anthrax, but with, at that time, kind of the modern stuff that was happening at the time with some industrial effects and things like Prong was a big influence and stuff.
Yeah.
And so great stuff. And we recorded 5 songs. Those guys, because of the contacts they had, were able to get us a record deal in Europe.
Nice.
And things were in motion for us to record a record on, I think it was Mausoleum Records, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But we signed the deal. We were going to go over and tour Europe. We had some really good press starting to happen, pre-internet days, of course, over there.
Nice.
And then what happened was, right as that all got going, apparently the record company, number one, ran out of money. They gave all the money to Joey Belladonna, who at the time was recording his first solo record. So all of a sudden, no money. So that kind of put the kibosh on it. And then right at the same time, too, Sebastian and Joe got a call from Overkill to go join them because their 2 guitar players had just left. And so they couldn't pass that opportunity up, and I understood, although, they left me in the dust. Now, there was a little bit of hints that the drummer may go too, but that never happened. I went from having a record deal, get ready to record a record, go tour Europe and all that, from with a band to 0 in about 5 seconds. And we all have those stories.
Man.
That kind of put the kibosh on that. But within a couple of years, I got another call. I had started a family at that time, got married, and had a regular life started at that time. But I got a call in '96, so not too far, actually a year later, from a guy named John Hahn. And John, who actually just put out a new really killer instrumental record. He's from the Pennsylvania area, and he was in Mike Varney's Spotlight column in his guitar, which at that time was huge.
Okay.
I mean, everybody from Paul Gilbert to everybody was in that column. And I had played with John at my band years ago. It opened for John, and he always liked my playing. So he called me up and said, hey, I got a deal in Japan. He recorded a whole record with his buddy Eric Heil, but it was with a drum machine. And John was really good at programming drum machines, but they wanted a real drummer. So I said, sure, let's do it. So I went down to Pennsylvania, and in 2 days, re-recorded their whole record on drums, and came out killer. There's a band called Thick as Thieves. We put out a record the next year in '97 called Rock the House, and it sold really well over in Japan, and we were almost going to go over there and tour, but it didn't quite sell enough because at that time, as we all know, grunge and all that kind of doom stuff was, everybody was depressed and staring at their feet and wearing them flannels at the time. And, if the album came out 10 years earlier, it would have been huge. It probably would have done well in this, in the States and stuff, because it was right there with everything.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of came and went within a year or two, and but the record still stands. That still sounds great. You can still find it if you look hard enough. Every once in a while, I'll put a post about it. I have a YouTube video on the recording of it when I was there, so that's kind of cool. And then from there, the next thing a few years later is when I started getting involved with Lou, and that whole thing started happening from there.
So that's how that happened. Okay, so then you got involved with Lou Gramm, the legendary singer of Foreigner, which I'm a very good fan of. One of my favorite rock bands definitely is Foreigner. Had 8 tracks. I mean, come on. That go way back, man. But that's amazing. So you get in with Lou Gramm now. And you're with him, what, about 2-3 years? You got to play with his band?
Well, it's. I'll try and make a long story short, but it's kind of funny and it's kind of interesting. So,
Okay.
so Lou is from my hometown here of Rochester, New York,
All
and
right.
he, through people I was playing with, everybody in Rochester knows everybody. It's kind of a small, big city. Everybody knows everybody.
Okay.
So in the early 2000s, I was in a band with, funny enough, the guitar player, Mike Sterto, who went on to be in Lou full-time before me,
Okay.
and our keyboard player, Andy Knoll, who played almost Lou's entire solo career up until the last couple of years. We had a foreigner tribute band.
Right.
And so we initially did one gig for charity that Lou did as well with his old band, pre-foreigner, called Black Sheep.
Okay.
And so we did this gig. It sold out. It was a huge deal here in Rochester. And once we realized that it was going to go well, we decided to keep playing. The original singer in that band was Phil Narrow, who is in Talus fame with Billy Sheehan.
All right.
So that went well for a couple years or so, and then Phil and us parted ways, and the next singer we got was Lou's nephew, Peter Grammatico. Now, his dad was Lou's brother, Ben, and Ben was Lou's drummer. Okay,
right,
so anybody keeping score out there, you're going to need to start writing this down. So we played around upstate New York for a couple of years and did really well.
Nice.
And Peter, because his uncle is Lou, we did another cancer benefit, and Peter got Lou to come play 3 songs with us, which turned out to be 4 when we got to the gig, because the 3 songs were rehearsed in our guitar player's basement, which is kind of funny. Sure. Little did we know we're all going to be in Lou's band later.
Wow.
But we do the show, we played the 3 songs, and then it was going so well. Lou's like, hey, we got to do another one. So unrehearsed, we did Long Way From Home.
Nice.
Went down like gangbusters, and that was the end of that. So a couple of years go by. Peter's dad is now Lou's drummer. Our keyboard player was now Lou's keyboard player.
Wow.
And a gig came up in Big Bear, California, with 3 days to go. Ben, Lou's brother, got sick and ended up in the hospital.
Oh.
So with 3 days to go, they called me up and said, hey, we can't cancel this gig. You know all the songs. Do you want to do the gig?
Right.
And so long story short, I had a vacation in Boston planned that weekend, and I put the kibosh on that, and my ex at the time took the kids and drove to Boston. I went to California and did the gig on 3 days' notice, and I didn't really have to learn too many songs, maybe 2 that my old band didn't play, and did the show.
Nice.
So then I flew to Boston and did that. Now, also, what was going on throughout time as well is they would need a rehearsal drummer to rehearse here in Rochester because Ben lived in New York. So they said, hey, you want to come down to Lou's studio and do some rehearsing? So I did that.
Nice.
Or back in 2004, they needed to re-record some foreigner songs, just some bits and pieces, because Lou couldn't use the originals for licensing purposes. So I went in the studio and re-recorded a bunch of foreigner songs that they used for promo purposes. So all that kind of went on until we're getting to the early 2000 teens, when my bass player in previous bands, his name is A.D. Zimmer, he replaced Lou's other brother as a permanent bass player.
Wow.
And then Mike replaced the prior guitar player as the permanent guitar player. So all of a sudden, everybody in Lou's band are guys I've played with for 30 years, either in other bands or in their foreigner tribute bands. So next thing you know, that's now Lou's band.
Wow, that's insane.
So Lou's brother bows out. He decided to retire from the band in 2016. So that's when I get the call to permanently be the drummer, and then the remaining years out to the end is when I toured with him and went all over the place. And I actually did another session of re-recording foreigner songs. We redid all that stuff again with the current band, which is what I sent you.
Yeah.
And you can hear it on my website on the homepage. You can hear all the foreigner re-recordings I did, and I don't know. So that's kind of the long version of a short, convoluted story of who replaced who and who knows who and who went to high school here and who had lunch with that guy there, and
Hey, you know what, man? That's great, because the Rockin House, we want to hear these stories. These are what make the Rockin House great. This is what makes you guys great as musicians in all these bands, because the stories are memorable. They're priceless. You can't put a price on them, man. I'll tell you what, that was some amazing stuff that he had to say about Lou Gramm and how it's so amazing how everything falls into place. Like you're saying, you wind up jamming with these guys, and here you are doing it again. It's just so weird how we all get connected, and it just winds up somehow in the same spot with either the same people or the people who know the same people. Just the way it works. We're like one big musician community, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to come back with Rob Mount in just a minute.
It feels like the first time. It feels like the very first time. Fill my eyes with that double vision. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me midnight blue. Oh, midnight blue. Oh, the blue morning, blue day. Won't you see things my way? Urgent. It's so urgent. So urgent, just to wait and see how you box heroes. Gonna be a jukebox hero, yeah, alright. I'm hot-blooded, you check it and see.
All right, Mark and I'm back with Rob Mount. Welcome back again, brother. Wow, some interesting stuff we talked about, man, earlier. Right now, I want to talk about, actually, let's talk about some memorable performances you've done, whether it was with Lou Gramm or was other projects you've had an opportunity to play with. Also, I'd like to talk about another guest we had formerly, Bob D, who I know you had an opportunity to play a show with him, which he's also talked to. He said you were awesome, and it was great to have you as a drummer playing with him. So let's talk about those things. Let's start with some memorable performances you've had and that you performed in it. Like, you know, wow, this is awesome. I've actually done this.
Yeah. Well, a couple of cool things, you know. Luckily enough, I played the Rockin Open Air Festival over in Germany with a band called Liege Lord, which I mentioned before. Joe, the singer in my band Ramrod, was also the singer in the band Liege Lord. And that was really cool. Anybody who's ever played there or gone there, it's like the hugest, biggest metal experience, not just festival. It's just a huge experience. It happens every year in the beginning of August, and that was you know, a fucking blast to do that. Right after that, actually, we recorded a song that was released on a Uriah Heep tribute record with you know, Ken Hensley, and unfortunately Lee Kerslake just recently died from that band.
Yeah, rest in peace,
so that band, I did that, you know, so Rockin' was cool. And then, you know, with Lou, that would be the next biggest thing, traveling all over for years with him. We would do shows with everybody. I mean, we opened up for Bad Company out in California, you know, did a huge show with them. We've played gigs with Loverboy a few times, including Rock Cruise with them. Foghat, we played with Foghat, Pat Benatar.
Very awesome.
Rick Springfield, I don't know. There's a million of them. You know, we've got to play with lots of guys, and you know, Kevin Chalfant, John Elefante from Kansas did a couple shows with those guys. Super cool. So I mean, lots. You know, I mean, obviously Lou's got a name. A few people here and there know him. So you know,
few
brings a few opportunities. You know,
sure, man.
That was cool, and that's led to a few other opportunities. You know, for a brief moment, I was going to be drumming in the Rock Vault out in Vegas, which is a huge show that they have. You know, a lot of huge names that do that come in and out when they're not touring, and their drummer, Jay Shellen, gave me his gig when he was going to go tour with Yes for a while, but that kind of, you know, went a little south because they kind of thought he was temporarily leaving, and he was kind of permanently leaving. And Blas Elias, the drummer from Slaughter, ended up with a gig, which rightfully so, because he was the one of the subs there. So it was kind of a cool thing for a second that I was going to do, and you know, that was kind of cool. So you know, it's just led to other opportunities. People have, you know, occasionally want me to record or join their band, or, you know, my buddy Joe from Liege Lord wanted me to go tour last year with Leisler. They were going to go play Europe and do some festivals in Greece and all that kind of stuff and play in the U.S. And unfortunately, you know, it wasn't a lot of money in it. And, you know, everybody's got bills to pay. And they kind of couldn't justify going to play for, you know, no money, you know, as fun as it would have been.
Of course. So let's bring that to your opportunity of playing with Bob D, a guest we had on our show. Great guy. He was awesome to have on the show. We had him previously on here. And I know you had an opportunity to play a show with Bob. How was that?
A couple shows.
A couple?
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
We did 2 shows in a weekend. The manager of a band I used to be in that played all over upstate New York knew Bob. They grew up together and whatnot.
Okay.
And I guess they came up with an idea for Bob to come to Rochester and play a couple shows, and we would play a few of his songs. And he brought his guitar player with him, which I don't remember his name at the time, unfortunately. But so we learned, I don't know, 3 or 4 Bob's songs.
Cool.
And so in the middle of a couple of big gigs that we had, a couple outdoor festivals we did here, we'd introduce Bob. He'd come up and play, and I love his stuff. He's a great musician, great singer, super nice guy. And so we played a few tunes with him, and there's some. This was a few years back, like 2009, 2010. So there's some video of that, which at that time cell phone video wasn't that great. So unfortunately, nothing really great quality. But it was a lot of fun, man. Bob's great, so it was awesome.
So awesome. So let's look into the future now, as we're going to close our show, and of course how things are affected with the scandemic. What is the future for Rob Mount? Like where are you heading with these opportunities? Do you have any new things coming into play into the new year?
Well, last year, at the end of about this time, actually, I did another really cool gig with the guys in scrap metal. And for those who don't know who scrap metal is, it's kind of the brainchild of Gunnar and Matthew Nelson, and everybody in the hard rock metal community has done gigs with them. Mark Slaughter, Lita Ford, Barry Goodrow from Boston. My gig, we had Barry Goodrow from Boston, Janet Gardner from Vixen, Phil Lewis from LA Guns, Eric Martin from Mr. Big, Mark Slaughter was there, Howie Simon was there, a bunch of really cool guys, named guys, and I was called kind of to come in and sub because they've had a few different drummers that do it. One is the drummer from Night Ranger, Kelly Kagi, and Bob Rock.
Nice.
So I went in and subbed and did that gig, and there was some talk, at least on the phone, from Gunnar Nelson saying as of maybe this year, if the opportunity arose, that I might do some more gigs with them. And so that was kind of cool. It's something to look forward to. Not that there's ever anything that's certainty in the music business, of course. But he was talking to me anyways about doing some more gigs and that if they arose. And they were talking about playing more than they normally did, because normally they would only do 4 or 5 gigs a year. And this year maybe do a bunch more. Well, we all know what happened this year, of course. And, that just put everybody's music career to shit. So, anything that possibly could have happened, now, of course, nobody's doing anything other than recording. That's all we really can do. Or playing at a drive-through with everybody sitting in their cars, or playing in your front yard in your garage. What are you going to do? So that sounds pretty awesome. So then you do got some opportunity that could come if this thing opens up to play with the guys from Nelson then, right? Yeah? Well, you never know. I mean, the only downside is that was a year ago, and any momentum that could have come from that now kind of killed through this not doing anything for a year. So you never know. I never knew I was going to get a call from those guys. I got a message on LinkedIn from Gunnar. That's how I got that gig. I mean, who would have known, So I just try to do what a lot of guys do, is keep a good, positive, almost daily appearance on a presence on social media, because that's all you can do right now to keep your name afloat. I mean, other than texting people and keeping in touch that way, which I do, what else can you do?
Right. So. All right. Well, Rob, I want to thank you very much for definitely coming and being a guest on the Rockin House. It was a pleasure to have you. I mean, we've talked several times. We're going to talk more, and we know that. I just wish you the best. I hope things open up for you, get more opportunities come in 2021. I really do think it's going to be a better year for all of us musicians. I just don't know when in the year it's going to be. But we'll see. But I want to say, I'm Marky Z. I'm with Rock Dude, my partner. And I want to say thank you for watching. I'm out.
Congratulations, Rob Mount on drums.